In a split second, all hell broke loose. This guy pulls out a 5-shot revolver Derringer. There's a 22 Magnum, so it was tiny. It fit in his hands. He shoots at the one deputy, and the round goes above his head. At the same time, he went to tase the guy, so it happened simultaneously. Turns around. I'm probably 8 feet from him at this time. I'm starting to come up. 22 Magnum round comes, strikes me in the neck, enters my neck, quarter inch from my jugular vein, exits a quarter inch from my spine. I didn't know this at the time. Since it was so close to my spine, I thought I was being electrocuted because it was so close to my central
Yep.
nervous system there.
Yep.
I froze up. I dropped my rifle. Uh, I froze up for about 2 seconds. Didn't hear any gunfire.
Because we had a young man fall off the slide for life 3 times and broke his back,
Yep.
and they put
Same
him
with
out.
us. Fall from the top too, and he was paralyzed from the waist down. You know who your girlfriend's should be? It should be Buds. And you goddamn well better not cheat on Buds, or she's gonna leave you.
Good afternoon, folks. I'm Jake, and I'm your friend. And today we have Jim. Jim is going to try to save us from going to Buds and getting your head cut off. That's right, he had 2 opportunities to pass SEAL training and didn't make either one. One shot in 195 and another with class 208. They did not work out well. However, when you hear this video, there's so much stuff in here that you're going to glean from it. This man right here has went on to become a giant in the police force, and I think you guys are going to enjoy it.
Get the letter. High school sweetheart. I miss you, honey. I love you. You're my future. I want to be with you. Caught me off guard, because I'm in this mode, but then I start having these old feelings for the only
Oh,
girl
yeah.
I've ever been with. I'm a
Yeah.
21-year-old kid, high school sweetheart. There's nothing else out there in my eyes. I was a dumb, naive boy.
Yeah.
So I end up calling her and we start talking and the command I was allowed to take leave if I want, which I should have never done. Obviously, you should stay in that training and not do anything but that training.
So
Uh,
Jim, I'm going to tell you this one because I think it's very, very appropriate. My mom said I called when I got to San Diego, October. She said I never called home again until the middle of June. And I said, hey, I'm graduating on Thursday. Come down. They were in Washington State, right? And I
wow.
said, I asked her this maybe if she passed away last year. So probably 5, 6, 7 years ago. I said, I never called. She said, not one time. No one heard anything from you. Not a single person heard from you ever. And I was like, I stayed in 618. I stayed in my barracks room Christmas. We were there over Christmas. We had Christmas leave. I stayed right there. I ran because I was out of shape. So I ran and trained. But like I tell people, when you get there, go in the hole. Turn everything off. Do not like I had somebody out there that was texting me every night after training. I said, listen, I want you to put your phone away on Sunday. I don't want you to open it back up until Friday night. Like, stop looking at
Right.
your phone. So, all right. So,
I
you take this 2 weeks of leave. Where'd you go?
Back home.
Oh, my goodness. How are your lungs doing at this point?
They were getting better actually. The antibiotics seemed to be working. They were clearing up. I started running again.
Okay.
I did a practice run on my own. I remember to see if, and I was able to pass. I knew I was going to be able to pass that run when 196 would catch up to me.
Okay.
Uh, so I go home and uh, decide to get married.
Mm, mm. You
My
you
pit
trying to like you got C4 strapped to your ankles and you're like, oh, I don't need these ankles anymore. Let me get rid of these ankles.
parents have a wedding at our house. They put it together real quick, have this nice, beautiful wedding. So I think I only took a week off, and
Okay.
so it came up to that next week. I wanted to take a couple more days. I'm like, I don't have to be. They said at 196, they're not going to have their fourth phase for a couple weeks, so I'm gonna see if I can take off because she's like, oh, stay with me a couple more days if you can. We're having this great old time.
Yeah.
Catch my drift. So, uh, I called the duty command officer and I'm like, hey, I'm told him who I was. They knew that I was waiting to class up. I'm like, can I take a couple extra days off? I used this excuse that my wife I had to go to the medical center was bullshit, but it is
Yeah.
what it is. I try to take off. They're like, well, I don't see an issue with it, but there's no officers here. Call back tomorrow, and when you talk to the officer in charge, you'll be good to go. I wasn't good to go. So I changed my flight. I call that next day or 2 days when they told me to call back, and the lieutenant said, no, it was not approved. You are UA right now. You need to get your ass back to California like yesterday.
Jim, thank you so much for coming on here and telling your story, brother. Like, I know it ain't easy to talk about failures in life. So just let's get into a little bit of how you grew up, where you from, what
Okay.
how you kind of found your way to buds, but more importantly, just really kind of what was your grit background, where'd you grow up?
So lived in a grew up in a suburb about 30 miles south of Cleveland, North Royalton, Ohio. It's 30 miles west of Akron. So it's a nice suburb community. Uh, Mom and dad. Dad was a firefighter. Mom was a nurse. I have one brother. He's a doctor as we speak now. Great childhood growing up. When I started to, as a kid, always playing in the woods with your brother, I always had known I was going to go in the military. I just didn't know what I wanted to do at the time. So obviously this was, as you're aware, before cell phones and the internet and anything like that. So uh, I didn't really know what branch I wanted to be in, but I had an interest of wanting to be the best of whatever I wanted to do, and no matter which branch it was going to be. So as I started getting high school, I was a late bloomer, so it took me to my later years of high school till I started to uh, grow up, if you could say that. But I did wrestling for 2 years in ninth and 10th grade. Our team, I was mediocre at best, like I said, because I was a late bloomer. Uh, my junior and senior year, I know you're going to love this. I did track and cross country, my friends. So I did that
Yeah.
for the 2 years. Uh, I didn't, like I said, I didn't know what I wanted to get into, so I started going to the library and doing some research, and I started reading about Green Berets, Army Rangers, the Air Force Combat Controllers, and then I started obviously reading about the Navy SEALs. And what really led me to want to start looking into more of them was the water aspect of it. I noticed that, as far as I knew at the time, the other units didn't have any. Uh, they weren't as familiar in the water as what it appeared the seals were. So that really caught my attention to go look more towards that route. My dad was in the Navy. He was in the 60s during the Cuban Missile Crisis. He was on an aircraft carrier during that. He was aviation ordnance. So I kind of, maybe I followed dad's footsteps. Uh, so I started doing a little more research of what the Navy SEALs were at that time.
Were you swimming during that time, Jim? Could you swim really well?
No, no. We didn't have my high school didn't have a swimming pool or anything like that. Running, like I said, the wrestling, as I've listened to your videos, that they had a lot of the grit of losing weight, wearing the trash bags over, running
Yep.
around all the place and nonstop wrestling. So, I didn't, as we'll get later in the video where you talk about your grit, I got my grit once I got to SEAL Team 8, which I'll go into it down the road there. That's where I got, as you call it, my grit.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, so okay, so you had a good high school, you got a good two good parents, no
Right.
craziness in the household, dad wasn't beating the shit out of you, making you chop wood all day, just
Nope.
grew up in a good suburban home. Is your brother older than you?
2 years younger.
Okay, you got a younger brother, so he was trying to keep up with you for the most part. All right, so where during high school do you make the decision to go in the Navy?
I graduated in 91. So around 1990, my junior year, and the first, I started going to different recruiters. My mom knew, worked with an Army Reserve guy. I told him I was interested in the SEALs. He was like, well, come to the Army. We have some scuba unit or something. I didn't know really
Yeah,
what it was. The Marine Corps at the time they didn't have a special operations unit till, as you know, after 9/11. So I wasn't really interested in them. So I talked to the Navy recruiter, went in there. I saw the good old poster of the guys coming out of the water back in the
yeah.
day. Uh, and then they showed me, a lot of your viewers aren't going to know what this is, but it was called a VCR tape. that he put in the VCR machine. I'll go back a minute. There was no, as you know, no movies about Navy SEALs at this time. I didn't even know what was involved in a Navy SEAL. It was before 9/11, so there was no wars going on. The only thing that was going on at this time was Desert Storm. One of the recruiters, we put in the video, it was called Be Someone Special. It was
Did
a real old.
is that the video that started off with everybody tied up in a swimming pool?
No, it showed him in a Huey helicopter, a SEAL team blowing up a bunker. It was real
Okay.
cheesy.
Okay.
And then
Okay.
it showed first phase, second phase at the time was the land warfare, and then third phase was the diving part. So it showed all three aspects, but still didn't really show the nitty gritty of what SEAL training. It just showed the glorious parts of it.
Yep.
So I talked to the Navy recruiter. Of course, I'm maybe all of 150 pounds. I'm not doing any upper body. This didn't start happening till I was in the Navy. But of course, he tells you, yeah, you can be a Navy SEAL. I wanted to actually join when I was 17. Being the first Gulf War was going on, my parents wouldn't have anything to do with it. I joined the Navy actually on my 18th birthday. The day I turned
Okay.
18, I went downtown to MEPS and took my ASVAB test. At that time, there wasn't no SO rate, the special operations rate. You had to pick from a list of rates, try out for buds after you went to your ACE school.
Yep.
So I got my rate was MR, which was a machinery repairman. Told me, yeah, you go to boot camp. Once you're in boot camp, a SEAL screener will come in and you could take the test then and you'll be good to go. So sign me up. Like I said, I had no idea what I was getting into at the time, Ben. I think 7 or 8 months in the delayed entry program, I had to
Okay.
graduate high school. And then
And back then
September,
they had no prep program, they had
no,
no dive motivators, they had nothing. So basically you
nothing.
just did whatever you wanted to and then
He
good.
he didn't tell them there was no getting ready for it. He just said, don't quit. They didn't have, I had no idea what the timed run was going to be, the swim, nothing. September of 91, I ended up joining the Navy. Went to boot
Okay.
camp. Going to boot camp. First couple weeks of boot camp, the SEAL motivator came in. Of course, I raised my hand and I failed that test miserably.
Okay.
Was not ready at all. I wasn't mentally ready, physically ready. Forward, get through boot camp, go to my ACE school, go through my ACE school, which is the machinery repairman school, and then I got orders to go to my first ship. So at this point, I knew, okay, now I have to go to a ship because obviously I didn't pass the BUDS test initially. That's when I really started doing a lot of research, finding people that were. My first ship was a submarine tender, which was
Mm.
out in Norfolk, Virginia.
Mm.
Yeah,
Submarine
so
tender. Now wait a minute. This is 1990. You had a bunch of women on that submarine tender, did you not?
yes, there were, sir.
Yes, sir. How like
Well,
1,200 people, 900 women? How many women out of the
uh,
1,200 crew?
I think there was 800 males and then 400 women. So it was like
Okay, okay.
about a third.
By the time I
Yeah.
got in '98, it was the exact opposite. It'd be like 900
Uh,
females and 300 guys. They sent a
okay.
ton of females to the subtenders. I had to go on the subtender to get my physical, my diet physical for
Right.
the package. It was
Right.
all
Right.
females. I was like, oh my god, oh my god. Okay, so
So
you go to the subtender, your machinery repair. Obviously, you're working on a bunch of stuff. Just talk to me about the first couple of weeks on that ship. Talk
yeah.
about
So
where you lived, how it smelled, right? Like just all the fun things that you and I both know, but that the
right.
general populace doesn't understand about reporting to a ship.
Yeah. So I mean, it's not like a carnival cruise, that's for sure. So you get to the ship. It's a Navy ship. I was in the machine shop. I was a girlfriend at the time, which we're going to get into that throughout my whole career in the Navy. It was a on and off girlfriend. At the time, of course, the love of my life, first love I ever had. So to me, that was my world at the time. I lived on the ship. It was, as you know, there was divers on the ship. So that's when I kind of started talking to those guys. There was a decompression chamber on our ship. So down the road, when I would put in my buds package, I was able to do everything there. So my job basically consisted in the machine shop, making parts for the nuclear submarines. They would load torpedoes onto the subs. The good thing about it, if there was a good thing, is we never went out to sea. The
Yep.
subs would always come into port to us to do the repairs. So I never went on one deployment while I was on the ship. I started meeting up with the divers. They showed me now actually what I had to do. They said in a year and a half, don't get in trouble on the ship or anything, and you could apply to go to buds. They told me the minimum standards, and that's really when I started kicking into overdrive on myself, and I got myself in phenomenal shape within that year and a half
Were
on
you
the ship.
the sub tender is always parked down by the subs, right? Like I want to
Yes,
say it's
sir.
like 10 or 11, whatever the pier numbers are down there.
Right.
Did you go to the swimming pool in the middle?
Yes.
So
Yep.
like I prepped in that same swimming pool. How much were you
Yep.
swimming at this point?
Once I start talking to divers, I'd say 1,000 meters, 3 days a week. So nothing spectacular. But towards the end, I started to do a lot of swims in the ocean, which I don't recommend. Of course, you're invincible when you're that age. Nothing, you're not gonna, you're invincible. There was one point I went out in the ocean, me and my buddy, when a hurricane was coming in, and the lifeguards were trying to tell us to come out, and we did, and we had wetsuits and whatnot. So even during when I was in the machine shop, every 30 minutes I'd set my watch. I'd go in the back maintenance room and I would do 50 push-ups every 30 minutes. So by the end of my 8-hour shift, I did 800 push-ups, doing a bunch of pull-ups throughout the day, sit-ups. And then another thing, they gave us a 2-hour lunch. So I was able to go and I ran 5 to 6 miles every day during lunch, come back, shower, and then finish the second half of my day in the machine shop.
Hey, let me ask you this, Jim. Were you doing pull ups on the I beams? You know, like
Yes.
on the up. Yeah, 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 yeah. I would
Yeah,
be
because
ripping.
yeah.
I'd be ripping pull ups on those bad boys. Like when I was getting ready, I rip pull ups on the I beams all over the place.
Yeah, 40 year and a half, I was ready to take the dive physical, the dive test and whatnot, the screener, pass it with flying colors. A long time, but I remember when I did the run on the ship, I got the fastest run for the whole command of the ship. I remember doing a mile and a half in 8:30.
Ooh, buddy.
So
How
yeah,
old were you now?
20 years old at the right,
Okay.
because I turned 21 when I was at SEAL Team 8, but so I was 20 at this time.
So let's talk about this. I want everybody to understand that Jim went to a ship that didn't get underway. It literally was the best training environment you could possibly have in the Navy. He wasn't on shore command. Shore command, they're gonna work you all the time. Like in a medium repair facility, you ain't getting no 2 hour lunch. He was on a ship. He didn't get underway. He had a swimming pool right down the piers, maybe like a mile from where the submarines were, and he had a 2 hour lunch. I just want you guys to understand this is the exception in the Navy should you just pick a regular job trying to get to SEALs, which is almost impossible now.
I took the screening test. I think I did 20 pull-ups. I did probably 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, around that, give or take. And then the swim, I think I did it high nines, the 500 meter. I passed. I obviously did the rest of the physical, go in the decompression chamber, all that good stuff. I had to wait, obviously, to get orders to buds. About a month later, I received the orders. Say I had about 7 months, 8 months till I was to report. So that's when I had a friend that said, "Hey, why don't you see if you can maybe go temporary additional duty, TAD?" That's what that stands for, because we didn't have no free buds or
Yeah,
anything then.
yeah.
So I'm like, I need to get. I'm like, worst they can say is no. So I remember going there and talking to the XO at the time at the command at SEAL Team 8, and I told him I got orders. I showed him my package, so he knew I wasn't trying to go to buds. I was going to buds, and he said, "Hey, come to SEAL Team 8 if your command will let you." Obviously, I had to get permission from my command. We'll take you under our wing till you go to buds. So I did the necessary paperwork with my chain of command. They are very, very supportive. A lot of commands don't want to let you go. That's manpower that they don't want to let go of.
Yep.
But
Yep.
my captain was he's like, good luck. I want to see you do well. We'll let you go. You're going to leave anyhow in 8 months. So what's 6 months early?
That's awesome. You don't see that very much in the Navy, especially in the SWO community. Now, do you have a surface warfare officer as a CEO, or did you have a diver?
No, he was the commanding officer of this ship was surface warfare
Okay.
captain.
Because sometimes you're going to have those, like on the tenders, you're going to have a dive qualified. He'll have the dive bubble and he'll have a SWO pin. Those guys tend to be a little bit more understanding of that you're going to do something really, really hard and not going to Hollywood, right? Like on my ship, they'd be like, "Oh, you're going to Hollywood." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" Like, no, this ain't no easy task. Like, I signed up for the hardest shit in the Navy. They made it seem like I was going to the promised land and shit. I'm like,
Right.
all right, so you get to go over there. Let's talk about your first day at SEAL Team 8. Just I checked in the first day of SEAL Team 8. What was the sediment? First of all, how'd you check in? You check in whites? Did you check in?
Yes.
Okay, you
I
check.
dressed up my whites. I wanted
Okay.
to give a good first impression.
Yep.
So I showed up. Executive officer took me over to the Master at Arms office, where that's
Yep.
where I was going to be. Obviously, I was not a SEAL, so they weren't going to put me with a platoon or anything. Those guys probably didn't want anything to do with me anyhow. So I was shown where that ran the Master at Arms there, which that's where I was going to report every day to work.
Okay.
Really took care of me. They set me up on base with the barracks there at Little Creek. So I had, I went from living in this ship with three three racks on each, six guys sharing a little space to having my sharing a room with somebody else at the barracks there on base. So that was nice. I got that all given to me. They gave me some gear that I would need to train with the SEALs. They told me kind of the schedule, what they did every day during the weeks. I was allowed to train basically from 7 to 10 every morning with those guys. And then I also did another workout at lunch and after, which I'll get into. So they pretty much orientate the first couple of days. They showed me around the facility, showed me the cage in there where all the SEALs, kept gear. I never seen anything like that. Just all the equipment these guys had back in the cages in there. Just pretty much went over everything with me.
So let me ask you this: as you were meeting all these meat eating cavemen, was there any fear in you? Did you feel like you had stepped into a prison? That's how I describe it to people most of the time. What was your physical reaction to stepping into the SEAL teams?
It was surreal at first. You look up to these guys like they're not even human beings. They're not people. I felt like I was walking into a hornet's nest at first because people are looking at you. You don't have a trident. You're just some wannabe that a lot of people, I got the impression, didn't want me there. Nobody else was there. Guys going to Buds. I was the only one there the whole time I was there, actually, getting ready to go to Buds. Not there was other SEALs there. There was a lot of support personnel there.
Where did you get dressed at?
Oh, the locker rooms back in there. There was the showers and locker rooms back in the command there.
Okay.
Blue shorts, blue shirts. Gave me the back then. Even in Buds, when we get to that, we didn't run in tennis shoes. We had the old Vietnam era jungle boots
Okay.
back in.
Gotcha.
So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
got gear, a half wetsuit, which I showed you that one picture. Not a full wetsuit at this time. I'm going to get into that little hazing that I got from them, but got all my gear, and then I was started doing my thing there.
How was the first PT you went with? Did you feel like you were somewhat prepared, or were you like not prepared at all for the first PT in the SEAL teams?
I felt I was ready. So on my first day on a Monday, I believe it was, they showed me the schedule. And actually, I think my first PT was on a Tuesday. It was grinder PT, just a lot of calisthenics on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So that was my first one. Obviously, it's a whole nother world there. Those guys were like making me look I was just starting out, even though, I just passed the screening test and whatnot. It was an eye opener. And then you're surrounded with all these SEALs there that I don't know what their status was, maybe in between training or whatever they were doing, but there was a good amount of SEALs that would come, probably 20, 30 SEALs that would be out there doing the calisthenics with us. And that included everything push ups, sit ups, your pull ups, all that good stuff. Wednesday was the obstacle course, which was at Little Creek. They had two of them at the time. They had a smaller one, which was more set for endurance. And then the other one was a bigger one back in the woods where they actually had their own slide for life and all that stuff
Yeah,
back in
they
there.
closed the big one down because people were getting hurt.
Yeah, I
It was like
almost did.
it was falling apart. So
Yeah. So that was on Wednesdays, Thursdays was calisthenics, and then Fridays was a real long run. They would change it up. Sometimes it was just a 5 mile state park run, and then other times they you would finish up on out on Virginia Beach, which make it 9 or 10 miles. And so
it's
that
13 miles from the beginning of State Park all the way to First Street.
okay,
Were you
there you
running all
go.
the way down to First Street to the parking lot?
And
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
where the
So
bus would pick us up and take us
yeah,
back to command.
it's 13 miles.
Time we got a 2 hour lunch there, me and another SEAL. He actually a good friend of mine. I met him, but he probably wasn't the best influence, but he was in the Master at Arms office because he was in trouble. So he ended up, I won't say his name, but he was getting he I guess before he was deploying, he decided to thinking he wasn't gonna get piss tested, decided to use some cocaine. And
Cocaine. That's a good
yep.
one. Okay, that's a good one. So you in the Master
So
at Arms shop with a Navy
So
SEAL who's getting discharged for cocaine.
So yeah, but
Okay.
so he had to wait till his discharge was going through less than honorable or whatever it was going to be. So being he was in there for disciplinary reasons, he would meet up with me at lunch every day, and we'd go out and we made our own workup that I would do every day at lunch, where you do one pull up, two push ups, two dips, and then you do two pull ups, four push ups, four dips, and we go up to 10. So you go up to 10 pull up, 20 push up, 20 dips, and then we go back down to one, which that was intense. We did that every day to lunch. In the afternoon, if they were doing something they wanted me to tag along with, I would. They let me shoot with them a lot. So that's where I really became a good shot. They would let me, I was amazed of how much ammunition those guys had to just piss away. And
Unlimited.
yeah, that's where I saw that for the first time. And they would let me shoot hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of rounds. That was the first time I was introduced to the AR platforms and pistols and things like that. So they would let me shoot with them a lot.
Awesome, man. You got a pretty good experience there. You know, it's funny now, like, I would never recommend somebody go to a SEAL team to get ready, right? Like,
Mm-mm.
mainly because you got all the resources you need here. And when you go to Buds, you're going to be by yourself, right? Like, you
Right.
don't want to be training with a bunch of people. You want to be in solitude because you're going to be in solitude with yourself at Buds. So,
Right.
pretty neat experience. Okay, so you get, yeah, like, I think you talked about
So,
it at one point. They kind of accepted you and you got to do a lot
right.
more stuff. But early on, they were pretty much just standing in the corner, new guy, be
So
quiet.
I'm going to share one quick story where it was kind of like an initiation where, as you know, you swim all year around there because it's salt water. It's not going to freeze. We went on a swim in late November in there, and they gave me that half wetsuit with just so it just covers basically for your viewers out there. It just covers your torso. You have the mask, the head part of the wetsuit. Your arms are exposed and your legs are exposed. And then I had the booties with the fins. So we're doing a 2 mile base swim, and these seals they're doing it too, but they have the full wetsuits on when they're doing. They're like, hey, you're gonna need might as well get used to being cold, brother. Get your ass in there. And that is which is hard to believe, but I think that is the coldest I ever been. Even some of the things that happened with Buzz, I was borderline hypothermic at the end of that, where actually a SEAL knew I was hypothermic because I was starting to get disorientated. I wasn't keeping in a straight line. And there was about a half mile left, and he's like, listen, he came up next to me and he's like, I want you to just look in my mask the rest of the swim. And I stayed with him the rest of the swim. But when we got to the pier, I could barely climb out of that ladder and walk back to the command, which was right down the road, as you know. And I sat
Yep.
in that shower, it seemed for like an hour.
And
So,
still was
that,
cold. I tell everybody,
yeah,
once you get cold, you can stand in the shower for 3 hours and still be cold.
right.
You might warm up that night.
Fortunately, I experienced the first time I saw the reality of the Navy SEALs, how guys can die in training. There was a SEAL, Petty Officer Dean from the Special Delivery Vehicle 2. He died in a diving accident while I was a SEAL teammate there. So there was a huge deal. There was a funeral. I had to help set up for that. At that time, I think the commanding officer of the Joint Special Operations Command was a general at the time. He
Yep.
came down and talked during the funeral, so I got to see that, which was a real eye opener. That for my first eye opener, that this is no joke. That people die in training. There was a lieutenant at SEAL teammate. He showed me his scar where they were doing. He told me they were doing CQB room entries, and the guy behind him had an accidental discharge with his AR and about blew off the bottom half of his leg. So I started to see a lot of this, that this training was no joke.
Yep. And that's the part that I try to, tell people, man. You ain't gonna be a SEAL team but 6 months before someone dies, and it might not be at your command, but normally they average, one every other month, one a month, And if you go 5 or 6 months without somebody dying, you could cast ain't gonna be riding helicopters together. You got guys that get super superstitious, man, big time. I was, I was older when I got to the teams. I was 28 when I finally got there. So for me, it was like, and I had seen a lot, like I got shot in high school. So for me, it was just like, well, shit, no shit, this is the business, right? Like we're
Right.
parachuting, we're diving. You know, you go through the mishap report. We had 3 dudes jump out of a helicopter at 100 feet at 100 knots. All 3 of them got killed. You know, it was
Right.
bad. Well, let me say this: the one dude didn't get killed because he skipped on the water and landed in the boat and lived, but the other 2 dudes died. So yeah,
Yeah.
man, real consequences. Okay, so you're at SEAL Team 8. You get in phenomenal shape. I have to imagine like you're in some of the best shape in the world. Long. If you're swimming with the frogs, you're doing 2 miles. What's the longest swim you did at SEAL Team 8 when you were there?
Up 3 miles.
Yep. Did you do a monster mash 2 mile and then go run 5 miles and come back and do three
Yeah.
miles?
Yeah, we did the swim first, and once the weather broke, and do the 3 mile swim, get out, change, and go for a nice state park run.
Yep.
So,
Good. Good. Okay.
during this time, just because this is going to have a lot to do with my story, I dating my high school sweetheart on and off. She did come out to SEAL Team 8 one time to visit me from Ohio. We hung out for the weekend. And then towards the end of SEAL Team 8, my time at SEAL Team 8, her and I got in a huge fight and we broke up. So now I was locked on. I had nothing holding me back. I had the mentality that, you know what, taste of what a SEAL was being at the SEAL team. I'm like, you're gonna have to kill me before I quit.
Yeah.
The I didn't want to let these guys down. They were telling me, you know, if when you graduate, put as your first pick, maybe come back to SEAL Team 8. In my brain, there wasn't no other options. There wasn't going back to a ship. I've been on a ship, so I had that in my brain now as part of the grid of not wanting to go back to the surface fleet of the Navy. This is what I wanted, and nothing was going to stop me. I was in the best shape of my life, and I had, you know, a lot of the mental fortitude that these guys put me through while I was there.
Yep. Awesome. How did you get from the East Coast to Buds? Did you drive?
Drove.
You
I
drove?
drove. I went home for a couple weeks, maybe a week. My dad offered to drive out there with me, and then he would fly back. I said, no, I think I just want to drive by myself, soul search on my way out there. I drove 3 12-hour days. So I drive 6 in the morning till 6 at night, stay in a hotel, and then it took me 3 days to get out there.
You finally checked into the place. Did it live up to what you thought it would be? First day checking in Whites.
Yeah, I remember checking in there. There was a SEAL there in the command. He immediately dropped me down. I remember, started cranking out. I'm like in my dress white uniforms. They didn't give a shit. So
Nope.
no. So back then, I don't know what they do now, but they actually called it fourth phase when I was there, which was kind of where they would get I don't know what the reasoning behind it was called fourth phase, and that's where they kind of got waiting for everybody to get there, and then once they had enough for your class to class up.
Yeah, it's called.
So
When I got there, it's called PTRR. I don't know what it stands for, but it's just like everybody's in 618. I mean, I'm sorry, no, they're in 602, which is the building that used to be right on the compound for all the
okay,
guys that weren't in class. Everybody in class was down at 618. So,
okay.
I got there in January. I stayed in there for maybe. I don't even remember. I was an officer. I was a full. Was I JG? I was a JG when I got there, so I just stayed. You know, a lot of the officers had apartments and stuff out in town. I wasn't playing that game, so I just stayed in the barracks.
Couple weeks, 2 or 3 weeks. We had our head shaving party the weekend before we classed up, painted our helmets all green with the class numbers on it,
Yep.
and we classed up.
How about this one now, Jim? So all them helmets ran out, right? So they don't paint helmets anymore. They just put stickers on them. They have red helmets and green helmets. Like I got like you're used to this, right? Like
Oh yeah.
the whole inside, like my helmet ain't even square. It's all cattywampus. They drove over it with a car, with a truck. It was flat at one point, and you had to paint it every day because they would fuck it up, right? Like
Like
they would
throwing it.
they would throw it, and you had to paint it every day. Now they got plastic helmets, and they're like all the way through. They're red, blue, and green. But I got them up in the house. One of my dudes that graduated like 6 years ago made me 2 of them. So shout out to my dude that gave me 2 helmets, man. I love you. They sit in my closet. I'm pretty pumped. So all right, so you shave your head, you paint your helmet, you're ready to go for first
And
phase.
and back, I don't know what you guys had. We were still in the Buds students wore the all green
Yeah, we was
still
in
when I
pajamas, baby. We was in
right.
pajamas. Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
we took our uniforms, took them out in town to get them starched up,
Yep.
which the amount of money you spent starch in your damn uniforms.
One time I got my uniform starched. One time.
Uh,
And then I went and got wet and sandy. I said, man, I'm not ever doing my uniform again. I'm going to show up. I was the OIC. I didn't care. We go get wet and sandy before the inspection. Like, as soon as they came to show up, we'd all run and get wet and sandy. Like, it was ridiculous.
right.
You're going to go get wet and sandy anyway, every inspection.
Didn't know it. SEAL Team 8 only could teach me so much. A lot of the stuff I never, which I'll get to, the drownproofing and the 50-meter underwater swim. I had a little issue with each of those, and I'll get to that. But I never did any of that at SEAL Team 8, so that was an eye opener.
You know
But
why, right?
no,
They ain't prepare you to go to Buds now. They ain't gonna give you all the cheat codes. They're gonna get you in massive shape. Because one of the biggest things that I tell my guys is Buds is about being able to learn fast, and be able to do fast, right? Learn a new skill in the morning, practice it all day, and be able to do it at night. It's just a different mentality, right? Like, we're not, like, even in my program, I don't tell everybody everything, right? Like, I don't give any secrets away. We're going to learn how to learn. Okay. All right. So how was the first day, man? Like, how was that breakout? Like, first PT session?
it sucked. I mean, I think we were down there 4 in the morning. They had the boats, with buckets of ice, dumping
Yep.
ice.
Yep.
We started with I don't know what the classes are now. We started with probably 120 some guys. So
Yeah,
it
they're a
was a
little
good
bigger.
size.
They're about 200 now start.
First PT, it was an eye opener. I mean, these guys were ruthless. I'm like, they're running to the beach and back, a minute to get there and back, to go in the boat. It was awesome to experience it for the first time, because I'm like, man, I'm really here. This is my dream. But at the same time, I'm like, man, this is getting pretty real. No matter how ready you got or worked out, this was at a whole nother level. Failed our first room inspection. That was a disaster. We spent all weekend trying to get that ready. And we're like, we're gonna pass. I mean, we got uh you're making your floor shine with wax, and those guys destroyed our room, threw everything out. They maybe had a couple people pass just to make an example of what it looks like to be a winner and whatnot.
Log of Copenhagen. Pass every time.
All right, right,
Log
right.
of Copenhagen. Pass
Yes,
every
sir.
time.
I found that out later.
Don't clean anything. Log of Copenhagen.
Yes, sir.
Back when Copenhagen log wasn't that expensive, right? Like,
Right,
I want to say it was like $14 or whatever. They were $2 a can. Wasn't that
right.
bad. So,
And of
okay.
course, we tried stuff to cheat, if you want to call it. I remember, since we had the jungle boots at the time, they had a steel sole in them, so taking that out, and so try to make your runs a little bit better. I don't know if they run now in boots still, or
Nike
shoes, but we had a
Nike Nike SBs that are basically tennis shoes with an upper on them.
okay,
We were there. We had base lights. Base lights were like tennis shoes. Like, they were truly
right,
just tennis shoes. So, they got rid of the jungle boots mainly because they ran out of stock, kind of like the green pajamas. Like, everybody wears camis now.
right,
So everybody's in camis, which I wish I would have kept my green pajamas. Right? Like, I wish I'd have
right,
kept them, but I didn't.
right,
So,
right.
okay.
So,
So, first day, anything memorable about the first day?
people started quitting, that's for sure. Towards the end of the first day, started seeing people quit, and I was like, I'm blowing my mind. I'm like, why? You have all these people that are in such good shape, put all this effort to be here. Why are they quitting? It's the first day, and I'm like, it gave me strength seeing that happen, but I was confused at the same time of why are these people quitting that put all this time and effort to get here. So. That was a real eye opener to me. I didn't expect that at all at that time.
You get done with the first day, you go to bed. Was there
Oh,
anything
yes.
memorable? Like, when you
Yeah,
finally got
that
back?
going to bed, it's a double-edged sword, because that was the best after getting your shit all cleaned away, cleaning all the sand out of your room. Going to bed was the best feeling. Till this day, I remember how it felt getting into bed after training. Then the alarm clock would go off, and
Yep.
that was the worst
Instantly.
feeling in the world.
Instantly, the alarm clock. As soon as you closed your eyes, the alarm clock went off.
Yes, sir. First Friday, they called it Black Friday for whatever reason. Basically, they kicked the shit out of us before the weekend. They wanted us to get a good dose before we were off on the weekend, because a lot of people don't know, most of the weekends you have off during buds. So, uh, you made it to Friday, and we're like, okay, the end is near. I think the final evolution, if I remember, I mean, it's 32 years ago, but was log PT, I think we did, and they pretty much ran us into the ground. and we finally secured around 6 o'clock that night.
That's the winner chicken dinner. They show up. The worst one is when they show up after 6:30, like after you run a chow and come back, and they're sitting in there drunk, and they give you the business at night.
Yeah.
So okay, so the
The
first week is
first,
first week
yeah,
is
real
done.
quick. Yeah, the first run we had, everybody failed. And I'm like, and that's one thing I'll get back to is the whole time I was running during SEAL Team A on the ship, I had a Walkman on. I would recommend to these new guys, I don't know if you agree with me or not, but that's something that I wasn't used to. I was always running with music when I would
So
run.
So in professional triathlons and all of that, they don't allow any music because
Okay.
you're anywhere from 15 to 20% faster if you run the music.
Right. And I didn't know that till I got there. They're not obviously letting you wear your Walkman at the time back then. And it was a contributing factor of not being used to running without having the music to jam to, down the beach. So,
And Jim, everybody fails the first run. The first run is like
yeah,
4.5 miles. So maybe one or
right,
two dudes a class pass the first run. It's a
right,
just like the first swim is 2.4 miles.
right.
So okay. All right, so you get done with the first week. What do you do that weekend?
Rested a lot.
Okay.
Like we need to get our room ready. Let's get the room ready for next week, the following week. I think we did go out to town that Saturday night just to see how it was out there. I turned 21 when I was at SEAL Team 8 actually, so I was now above the age of 21. So I think we did go out to a bar first Saturday and then Sunday got everything ready. At that time, Hell Week's what, the third week now or something? Fourth?
Yeah.
At
It's
that
the
time, it
third.
was the fifth week.
It was so when I went through it was the fifth week. You had 4 weeks
Okay.
and then you did
Okay.
Hell Week. So yeah,
Right.
now it's the third week, but they have a lot more prep. Like
Right.
they have like 8 weeks of prep now, so it's a little bit different schedule wise.
Right. So continuing on, the first we had I remember our first swim was the wetsuit appreciation. They didn't let you swim without, so you could get the feel how cold the water was. My first swim buddy quit during that, so they hooked me up with somebody else, and I had to finish that swim.
Was that as cold as your first swim in the SEAL team? At SEAL Team
No,
8? SEAL Team 8
I
swim was colder.
because that was in the middle of the winter. Those guys
Yeah,
fucked
baby.
with me, man.
Hey
They
man,
were
that's
all in there full wetsuits, and they put me in that bay with that half
good.
wetsuit.
Good.
Uh, So, I mean, there was one other time when I felt that cold, and that was at the Steel Pier on
Yeah,
Hell
yes.
Week.
Steel Pier is legit now. Okay, so you
So,
anything memorable? You said you had some
so
problems with
drown
drown
proofing.
proofing.
So the 50-meter underwater swim was first. And like I said, I'd never tried to swim that far. And that was on a Friday, I remember. And I think the end of the second week, because I think drown proofing was the third week. With the 50-meter underwater swim, we had obviously you have the people lined up at the combat training tank there. And I was towards the end of the line, so I got to get mentally psyched out and fucked watching
Okay.
these guys do it. Some of these guys are shallow water blacking out and they're pulling them out. For your viewers that don't know, they would have SEALs with snorkels swimming above the guys as they're doing the swim. And it's not really, I mean, these guys, you're in top physical shape. I think it was more of a mental fuck than anything.
Yep.
But I'm like seeing this, waiting for my turn. I'm like, it comes to me, and I jumped in the water, did the front flip. I didn't go down to the 15 feet. I stayed maybe 4 feet above the surface. I hit the wall, started to come back, and I shot to the surface.
Oh man.
And they yanked me out of the water, and they said, "Okay, well, your makeup test is Monday. You fail it, going to the review board." So that whole weekend, went to the pool and practice. And come Monday morning, I made sure I was the first guy in line to do it. Jimmied myself up to the front. And then I like, I'm not coming up. If I die, I die. It's that simple. I'm not, that's just how it is. And I went all the way to the bottom of the pool so the water pressure would help keep me
Oh yeah,
down, wasn't
absolutely.
fighting me. Hit the,
Yeah.
started coming back and I started to see on each side of me started to get black as I was coming and it was
Yeah.
closing and I hit the wall and I shot to the surface and I passed. And that was my
Awesome.
first, yeah, real good feeling of buds because that was the first thing that they showed me that. your mind can push your body way farther than what you think you can if you uh, tell yourself to.
Absolutely. Hang on, real quick, Jim. I want everybody to understand this. So you fail something, you go practice it, and then you're successful, right?
Yes, sir.
I
Yep.
would argue, like, my whole thing is be 400% prepared for the test. So if the weekend before you had practiced it, you might have had a different outcome. But I tell everybody, them demons are gonna find you at Buds. They're gonna find
Yep.
you. So whatever it is, like, you could have been a kick-ass swimmer, the 50-meter pool was easy, log PT will come get you, you know? So okay, so now you're in week 2,
Yeah.
and
Well, yeah. I mean, we did our drown proofing. That was the next thing. I think that was week 3, if
yep,
I remember
right before,
correctly,
yeah.
before rock portage and all that stuff. But so drown proofing, I actually enjoyed it. The first time I did, I'm like, the instructors aren't yelling at you. You're in the water. I had no problem jumping in, doing you drop your mask down there, you bob up and down for 5 minutes, float for 5 minutes. Part that I never tried, again, and this was along with the 50-meter underwater swim. I didn't know that was coming, so I couldn't even practice for it.
Yep.
For us, that was just, this is what we're doing today, and that's how it was. It's kind of the same way with the drown proofing. And I had an issue with the dolphin swimming, the 100-yard part, and then coming back, and then where you bob. So I remember a frogman, when we swam to the 4-foot part of the pool, I ended up touching my feet on the ground. He snagged my ass out of there. And same thing. I had another makeup test that Monday, and I ended up passing it that time. But
Yeah, yeah. So
so
I tell everybody, man, that drown proofing, like, I
no
had to call
joke.
I had to call everybody and their mama to pass that bad boy, and then I still passed out. I just passed out right at the wall, and they were my two swim buddies, Clint Bruce and Tom Reiner, who were football players, and they look at me with me, pulled me out, managed to
Hmm.
get me to pass. So yeah, so all right, so you had a couple setbacks emotionally, no big deal. You know, you
Yeah,
failed. You're still in the training. You kept it moving.
yeah. Was doing really good, believe it or not. I mean, I wasn't having any trouble with the obstacle course. That I enjoyed because I got to practice it there at the Little Creek. There was a guy, and I saw that on some of the videos. The O course is different. That Slide for Life. At the time when I was there was no additions to it, and there wasn't a hole cut in the middle of it. At the time you had to scale up it from the sides, all
Well,
all
they
three
I haven't
stories.
seen the hole in the middle,
Okay.
but I know they put the sand there when the Army took over SEALs and we came into SOCOM, because we had a young man fall off the Slide for Life 3 times and broke his back,
Yep.
and they put
Same
him
with
out.
us.
Yeah, so
We had a
they were
guy.
like, they basically were like, this is stupid. Why are you letting people break your back? And you know what we're gonna say, well, you're gonna be, if you're scared of heights, this ain't the place to be. So
Right. We had a guy fall from the top too, and he was paralyzed from the waist down. It was
yep.
terrible to see, but you're starting to see the realities of this training with this group.
I watched. We
So
had a guy. We had a guy fall off the top of the. Did you have
right.
anybody that would flip? They would go
Yes,
hand.
I'm not doing that bullshit.
I was like, this is the craziest shit in the world. I'm running at 8:30 and I ain't got to do this shit. Like, I'm like, oh my god. And he fell
Right.
fucking, like, the first flip attempt he missed and he fell. And he got lucky. He didn't get hurt. He got
Oh,
jacked
really?
up, but he didn't get hurt. Like, he didn't, like, he didn't get put out of training or nothing. But I'm like, you guys are stupid. I'm going hand over hand. I'm going easy over the top, and I'm going
Yep.
easy on the way down the whole way. So it's
So
60
on
feet
one other
high.
quick, right. One other quick story too. I remember it was the first or second week we were at the O course getting our ass kicked after it, and I heard in the background, "Harhey!" And here was a guy that was a SEAL at SEAL Team 8 out there for training, and he proceeded to tell the instructors, "Do you know this guy was at a SEAL team before he was even a SEAL?" And I got the living shit kicked out of me for a good hour or so for that. So
Good.
that was another memorable thing that stuck out. Just more razzing with me.
Yeah.
Whatever, took it,
Yeah.
get stronger.
Good. Good. Okay, so you wrap up week 3, nothing special.
No.
Week
Uh,
4, kind of in the groove, get ass kicking, do a lot of push-ups, get up really early,
Yeah.
go to bed not really late,
Beat
7, 8 o'clock.
Getting beat up at this time, man. It's really catching up to you where I've heard you talk about this is where that having the grit is a lot of people were quitting at this time. So this was I was in a summer hell week, May, June-ish, so spring-ish summer, but they just beat us more. The water was
Mm-hmm.
still freezing cold. Don't get me. I remember they would, I think it was 58, 60 degrees, but they just keep you in there longer with the surf torture and everything like that.
Yep.
Playing their
Yep.
mind games, we're gonna sit in here till one person quits. Uh,
And
trying to
and one
get
person quit, didn't they?
Yes,
It's the
yes,
craziest
sir.
thing in the world, man. They'd be like, "We're gonna run until 5 people quit," and we just keep running, and then 5 people would quit. I'd be like, "Oh my god! Like, what are you doing?" Like,
And it's in
oh,
groups too.
oh yeah,
I would
yeah. They always
notice.
they always quit in groups. One dude gets up, and 3 dudes get up with him. So I had a whole boat crew quit in Hell Week. Whole boat crew.
R- Really?
All 7 of them quit.
Wow. So that was one thing I kept in my mind is that what some of the guys at the SEAL team actually taught me is, or like nothing's gonna last forever. Just don't worry about 6 months from now. Don't worry about next week. Worry about what is in front of you. Don't think about lunch. Don't worry about this weekend. If they're beating you and they're telling you to do 50 push-ups, worry about getting through those 50 push-ups. If
Yep,
they're sending
yep.
you to the surf to get there in a minute and a half there and back, worry about getting there in a minute and a half back and worry about the next thing. So that's something I really embrace that I really took to heart when I was trying getting through this training up to this point.
Okay.
At this time, I still nothing from the I was locked in, nothing from the ex-girlfriend. Uh, Part of that was a motivation to me. A lot of it, I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna show everybody.
I'm about to trade up, baby. I'm be a Navy SEAL.
Right.
Okay. All right.
So
Anything super memorable in Hell Week? I mean, we don't have to talk about it. I
no, I
know.
mean, it's a big blur, most of
Yeah,
it. I mean, you
yeah,
remember breakout, people quitting, like you said, in groups. I remember that. I started to get pneumonia. I thought it was pneumonia. I started getting sick during Hell Week. This is where I started having issues, but I was having trouble breathing, the runs, we did that first ocean swim on Monday morning, I think after that Monday morning. Obviously, the doctors would check on you every morning.
Mm-hmm.
Felt like I had a cold at the beginning, but you keep pushing through, pushing through, pushing through. By Wednesday, when they let us sleep for that couple hours, that's when we did. I know it might be different for every class. We
Yeah.
had our three hour nap. I think on Wednesday, I woke up and my lungs were congested. I was coughing up globs of yellow shit out of my lungs. I was not where I couldn't breathe, but I'm like, man, something's going on with me. But I didn't really say anything. I kept just pushing forward. Got real bad come Thursday night, where you're just doing stupid shit at that point. That
Yeah.
everybody that quit pretty much quit at that time. I think we were down in the mid 40s at this point, and come Friday morning, we did that out. I think it was like I said, it
Dem
was a big. Everything was
the
together, but
demo
after,
pit road, like the demo
right,
pit.
right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Uh, Come Friday morning when we had our checkup from the medics, they're like, "You're fucking going to med bay. You're fucking checking my lungs." They're like, "You are going to sick bay." So it was Friday morning at that time. I think they secured 3 or 4 hours later around noon. So I unfortunately didn't get to be when they secured Hell Week, but being I made it till Friday morning, uh, you know, they I
They just
passed
rolled you
Hell
forward.
Week.
Yeah, they rolled you
Right.
forward. Yep.
So rest spent I think 2 days in sick bay. Sunday, Monday we ended up basically bullshit stretch PT with the
Yep.
sandals. But my lungs, I'm like, they weren't getting better. I was an antibiotics at this point.
They give you. Did they
Uh,
give you a Z pack? What did they give you
I don't
the?
remember.
Okay, because I
Yeah,
know
the
the Z
inhaler,
packs
the
were
inhale.
rolling. They gave you
Yeah,
an
that's
inhaler. It's big red pills. They used to be big
right.
red pills during our time.
Yeah,
Because at Naval Academy, I got a Z pack one time. I was like, oh, this is incredible. So your
yeah.
lungs still jacked up a little bit.
And we did I think the week after that, the hydro reconnaissance crap.
Yep.
And then we had the final run, the timed run to go to second, and I failed it. And I failed the makeup test. And that's when they said, listen, something's going on. And because obviously I never, after the first run, I failed. Everybody failed as you talk. But after that, I pretty much I wasn't the fastest runner, but I was in the top two-thirds of the
Okay.
pack always. I
Yeah.
got the first goon squad, everybody, but I never failed another run. And then now I couldn't fucking pass it. And I'm like, what is going on with me? And that's when I got rolled back to 196. They said
Okay.
once they catch up to you, you'll just start dive phase with them as long as you pass the run
Yep.
to go
Yep.
on to second phase. So that's where the things start to get interesting because at this point I'm on cloud nine. Even though I got rolled
What
back, I'm like,
what time of year is this? Like mid June,
yeah,
end
May,
of
Mayish,
okay,
March.
end of May, so summer in
Yeah.
San Diego. Okay, go ahead.
So I'm on cloud nine at this point because I got my brown t-shirt, even though it's nothing like a getting your trident, but that's a big
Yep.
step. And
Yep.
you still have a lot of obstacles ahead of you. You have the pool comp and whatever, everything that happens out at the island, but you know that at least they weeded everybody out that's going to quit at that point, at least in my
Yep.
opinion.
Yep. Yep.
So I was excited. Uh, I had a little time to wait till the next class to come up. Uh, so at this point, I before cell phones or anything, I get a letter. My weakness that I had in buds, which would be my downfall.
It's undefeated, my dude. It's undefeated.
Get the letter. High school sweetheart. I miss you, honey. I love you. You're my future. I want to be with you. Caught me off guard, because I'm in this mode, but then I start having these old feelings for the only
Oh
girl
yeah.
I've ever been with. I'm a
Yeah.
21-year-old kid, high school sweetheart. There's nothing else out there in my eyes. I was a dumb, naive boy.
Yeah.
So I end up calling her and we start talking and the command I was allowed to take leave if I want, which I should have never done. Obviously, you should stay in that training and not do anything but that training.
So
Uh,
Jim, I'm gonna tell you this one because I think it's very very appropriate. My mom said I called when I got to San Diego, October. She said I never called home again until the middle of June, and I said, "Hey, I'm graduating on Thursday. Come down." They were in Washington State, right? And I
wow.
said, I asked her this. Maybe if she passed away last year, so probably 5, 6, 7 years ago. I said, I never called. She said, not one time. No one heard anything from you. Not a single person heard from you ever. And I was like, I stayed in 618. I stayed in my barracks room Christmas. We were there over Christmas. We had Christmas leave. I stayed right there. I ran because I was out of shape. So I ran and trained. But like I tell people, when you get there, go in the hole. Turn everything off. Do not like I had somebody out there that was texting me every night after training. I said, listen, I want you to put your phone away on Sunday. I don't want you to open it back up until Friday night. Like, stop looking at
Right.
your phone. So, all right. So,
I
you take this 2 weeks of leave. Where'd you go?
back home.
Oh, my goodness. How were your lungs doing at this point?
They were getting better actually. The antibiotics seemed to be working. They were clearing up. I started running again.
Okay.
I did a practice run on my own. I remember to see if, and I was able to pass. I knew I was going to be able to pass that run when 196 would catch up to me.
Okay.
Uh, so I go home and uh, decide to get married.
Mm, mm. You
My
you
pit
trying to like you got C4 strapped to your ankles and you're like, oh, I don't need these ankles anymore. Let me get rid of these ankles.
parents have a wedding at our house. They put it together real quick, have this nice, beautiful wedding. So I think I only took a week off, and
Okay.
so it came up to that next week. I wanted to take a couple more days. I'm like, I don't have to be. They said at 196 they're not going to have their fourth phase for a couple weeks, so I'm gonna see if I can take off because she's like, oh, stay with me a couple more days if you can. We're having this great old time.
Yeah.
Catch my drift. So, uh, I called its duty command officer and I'm like, hey, I'm told him who I was. They knew that I was waiting to class up. I'm like, can I take a couple extra days off? I used this excuse that my wife had to go to the medical center was bullshit, but it is
Yeah.
what it is. I try to take off. They're like, well, I don't see an issue with it, but there's no officers here. Call back tomorrow, and when you talk to the officer in charge, you'll be good to go. I wasn't good to go. So I changed my flight. I call that next day or 2 days when they told me to call back, and the lieutenant said, no, it was not approved. You are UA right now. You need to get your ass back to California like yesterday. I'm like, well, okay. Well, so I got the next flight. It took another day. I come back out to California and I'm staying in now at the barracks where the guys of 196 are starting to class up and they're like, dude, where the fuck have you been, man? They were saying, dude, you're UA. They don't know if you just skipped town or what. So next day, man, they pull me aside. I had to go in front of the XO. He said, okay, well, they have a record that I called. We're not going to have you go to court martial or anything for being UA, but we're still going to leave it up to the first phase review board. What's going to happen to you?
Okay.
And they dropped me. I
Yep.
remember the proctor, really, he was on my side. He tried to give his sense and say, hey, this dude made it through Hell Week. Give him another chance. He made a stupid mistake. And those officers in there, they're like, listen, you are trying to be a Navy SEAL. If we can't trust you to be back on time, why do you think we should let you continue with this training? Yeah, you've proven yourself that you're not going to quit. So, we'll let you can go back to the fleet for a couple more years. And if you want to come back, you can come back in a couple years and think about what you did, and maybe you won't do it again.
So
So that's where
Jim, I had six officers, not mine personally. One of them was mine, who were told to stay in the barracks, and all the officers had apartments, and they went home at they had like a 10 o'clock muster at on Saturday. They were
hmm
all there. They went to their apartment, which was in IB, 20 minutes away. The instructors waited 20 minutes and then had another muster. All six of them, okay, all six of them got kicked out, but one of their dads was the dev group CO at the time.
right,
Okay. He got them all back in, and them instructors worked their ass over until all six of them quit.
really,
So, yep, I'm telling you, bro, I broke zero rules when I was in Buds. And I am the king of not following no rules. But I was
right.
like, man, this shit too important to me, man. But really, it really wasn't too important to me. I just was so fucking out of shape when I first got there. Like I didn't have, there was no leeway. I had no, I'm passing runs by 3 seconds. You know what I'm saying? Like
Right.
it wasn't until third phase where I could go jog and pass the runs. And that was if it was a good condition. If it was demo pit, my shit. I'll probably fail in that bad boy too.
Right.
So, okay. So you get kicked out.
I
You
go
got
to
a
X
wife
division.
now. You go
Yeah,
to X
so,
division.
but
You're
that was a
fucking
bunch of
pissed. You're pissed.
bullshit, man. I'm like, I'm in with these guys. I'm like, I didn't quit. Why am I with these? I'm back in my stupid ass dungarees.
Yep.
I'm with these guys that don't give a shit. They quit, on week one or whatever. So I hit rock bottom at this point. I'm like, what the hell? So
Did you
I
start
actually
drinking?
a little bit. Actually, I had to go out to the island for support for class 193, which was two classes. Obviously, started before 195, so I had to go out there for a couple weeks while they finished up their final, just for support with them out
Yep.
there. But I
Yep.
was out of training. Finally, get orders to go to another subtender in Norfolk, Virginia, the USS Emory S. Land. I had 3 years in the Navy at this point. So back to the fleet I went.
And
So
were you an E4 now?
I made E4 right after that.
Yep.
Right
Yep.
when I got to that ship, like within a month, I now made E4.
Okay, so now here's the $1 million question, Jim. You back in Norfolk. Did any of the SEALs? Did you talk to anybody?
Um,
Good,
I
good.
kept
Don't talk to them.
kept my
Good.
I kept my distance. I was ashamed. I felt like I let them down.
Yep.
I just had, I'm like, you know what? So I took some time being depressed, whatever you want to call it. But I was married at the time, got moved the wife down, got an apartment in Virginia Beach, and for the next year and a half, I'm like, you know what? I did it once, I can do it again. So I started doing the same shit. I'm not going to go back into it. Basically, the
Yep.
same shit I did 3 years ago.
Okay.
I ended up again. Now I wasn't going to try to go to SEAL Team 8 this time. So I went to Naval Special Warfare Detachment Little Creek. At that time, this was 95-ish. There was more than just me. They were taking people that were had
Yep.
orders to buds at
Yep. In
this
90
time.
in 95 they started the little prep program in Little Creek at the det. Yeah, yeah. 100%.
So I got orders to. I sent you that one letter that I had to submit a second package to Buzz. I put that letter with it, everything that occurred. Got orders again to go. So I now was with Naval Special Warfare Center Detachment Little Creek for the next 6 months, along with probably 5 or 6 other guys.
Okay.
There was a kind of a different atmosphere from the SEAL team, but it was a training center, so I got to see a lot more training evolutions. They would have Green Berets coming in, Air Force combat controllers, learn how to dive, stuff like that.
Okay.
They used us to uh, put different gear on, and then the combat controllers or Green Beret we would mess up the straps or whatever, and they would have to try to see what was wrong with. So we did that. Fast forward another 6 months, was ready again, best shape of my life. Uh, at this time, I had 5 years in the Navy, and what was going to happen is once I got out to Coronado, I was going to have to re-enlist for 4 more years.
Yep.
Uh, my wife and I at the time we split up once during that time period, so we were rocky at the
No
time at
no
best.
kids. No
No
kids.
kids, no
Okay.
kids, never had any children with her. So ended up she was going to stay in Virginia and I was going to drive out again and the plan was I'm like, listen, I can't have any issues when I get out there. Uh you can come out and visit once a month if you want. We'll fly you out there. I'll get a hotel for the weekend, whatever. And that's what we're gonna do. Had a party for all the SEALs at the Spec Warfare Center. I remember getting 2 kegs of beer for all the guys. They gave you the "Don't Quit" lecture. Ended up driving back out there. Got in a huge fight while I was out there with my wife. Like
Oh,
probably
with your wife. Yeah, yeah,
wife on
yeah.
the
Yeah.
phone. A
Yeah.
week I was about to reenlist in a week, and she gave me the ultimatum. This was going to be class 208. You're either going to pick the SEAL teams or your marriage. And I said, okay, marriage. And I didn't reenlist. I ended
Oh,
up,
so you picked her over the SEAL teams.
yes, sir.
Okay. That'll
So
happen.
I got an honorable discharge. I did my 5 years in the Navy, and she flew out to Coronado. I had to wait about a month to get all my discharge, my separation paperwork, all that stuff. And we drove back, and let me tell you what, that was rock bottom for me. That drive back, I just basically I remember sleeping in the car while she was driving. Like I just gave up my whole life, my dreams. This is all I wanted to do, and it's gone. Go back to Virginia, not to get into everything. Ended up getting a divorce a month later. Down the road, now this is interesting. This is such a small world. I didn't know that him at the time, but I didn't find this out till after 9/11 and seeing everything that happened. Rob O'Neill was in class 208, the guy that
Okay.
killed Osama bin Laden. So I'm like, man, I could have down the road. I still think, man, I could have been in his class with him if I would have
Man.
re-enlisted, and who knows what would have
Did you
happened.
after you got the divorce a month later, you didn't think about going back?
I did. So I was in such a depression. I was drinking a lot.
I
My
was I,
brother was.
I was gonna ask if you hit the bottle because the bottle is
Oh
normally the
yeah.
friend. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, I've
Yep.
seen people kill themselves after
Mm-hmm.
SEAL training.
Yep.
And I never got to that point, but I was pretty rock bottom. And my brother, thank God, he was at his pre-med college, Miami of Ohio, doing his first 4 years, his senior year. And It's like, you need to get the hell out of there and come back and stay with me at the college for a while. So one day I just packed all my stuff up in a U-Haul, my dog, everything in the U-Haul, towed my car and drove back to Ohio without her even knowing it because we were separated at the time, but still lived in the same apartment. Drove back to Ohio and got a divorce about a month later, and I ended up
Okay.
living with my brother at his college. At that point, while I'm home, my best friend I went to high school was a cop, and he's like, I came home and visited him. He's like, come right out with me. Uh, sometimes. So did a ride along with him. And I'm looking at this dude. I'm like, this cool uniform, his police, you're pulling over people, doing these cool calls. I'm like, you got a pretty cool job, man. You just drive around, stopping people, handling these calls. And so I started looking into it, and I found out that the GI Bill would pay for my police academy. At that time, it was super hard to become a cop then. It was a whole different world back then than it is now. 300 people would show up to a police test for 2 spots. So a lot of guys would put themselves through the police academy. I found out after I got out through my stupor a little bit, partied with my brother at his college, kind of lifted myself up. I'm like, I need to find a future here. I'm like, I'm gonna go put myself through the police academy. The GI Bill will pay for it. They'll buy my first firearm for me to train with, and that's the route I'm gonna go. And I'm like, I'll go to the police academy. If I don't get in a police department within 6 months, I'm going back in the Navy. I already made a decision of that, and so that's what started the second part of my journey.
So you got in the police department within 6 months, and
Yeah, so I ended up graduating while I was in the police academy. Actually, I got hired at the where I work now, the sheriff's department. I had to wait till I graduated from the police academy, pass all the tests, and then sheriff's department where I worked at the time, you started in the jail, so it wasn't like I was going right out to the road.
got you.
So that's when I started seeing police work. I did the next 6 years in the jail, but would ride out with all the road cops and got trained on my own, just so when there would be an opening, they would pick me, hopefully, when there would be an opening. So ended up doing that. Like I said, I'm now divorced, living life, go become a cop, go through police academy, was in the jail for 6 months. Uh, Finally, an opening opened up where I got promoted, get on patrol.
Okay.
Uh, yeah, so I ended up
Where
doing
are you
that.
at? Are you back in your hometown? Or where are you at?
Yeah, it's probably 20 minutes away from where I grew up.
Okay.
It was Medina County Sheriff's Office. It's a county, about 500 miles of road, so it's a pretty big county. There's three pretty big cities in the county. So I always liked it because you had the open roads. You weren't stuck in a little city. You drive all over the place. It wasn't like working in a real dense city like Cleveland, Columbus, or something, but we had enough action to keep you busy. Uh, so I finally got to the road. Uh, did 2 years on the road when I had my first real incident of a shooting. Now, before this, I started seeing what the SWAT guys were, which really caught my attention. I'm like, you know, obviously I wasn't able to be a SEAL, but this is a pretty cool thing to maybe get into.
Yeah.
I took the SWAT test. It's very competitive. I took it 3 times. Finally, the third time I took it, I got on the SWAT team, but that's a year after this incident I'm going to get into. Uh, so I ended up, if you want me to get into the shooting that I told you
Yeah,
about, the
yeah,
first.
absolutely.
Okay.
That ain't the BB gun shooting. BB gun shooting's
No,
later.
no, no. This is when I got blasted.
You
So,
got
uh,
shot?
yes, sir.
Okay. All right, let's
So,
talk about it.
so it was September 7th, 2006. I was actually on a traffic stop and get a call while I'm actually writing a 16-year-old a ticket. Got a guy threatening suicide. His friend just left. He said he's burning everything. He's going to kill himself. So I give the kid his ticket real quick, get on my way. We meet up with my supervisor, a couple other deputies. Another deputy was had a guy in training with him. So this dude's in his first week and he has no idea what's about to happen. The house is probably 100 yards down the road, so the sergeant told me to go around into the woods. I had an AR at the time, uh, to go in the woods and observe this guy, keep eyes on him while the other deputies were going to get a game plan together how they were going to approach this guy. So I'm in the woods, I'm watching this guy, I got my binoculars. He's going in and out of his house. He takes his four-wheeler, throws it onto a fire, puts gas on it, brings his computer out. He's burning all his shit, clothes, boxes of paper. So it was determined that next time he got out of the house, I was going to let the other three officers know, and they were going to approach him because we didn't want him to barricade himself in the house and turn into a barricaded suspect call.
Yep.
So the guy comes out. Like I said, I'm 2 years on the road at this point, so I'm pretty green myself.
How far away from him were you? What was the
I'm in the
distance?
woods.
Yeah.
I'm 100 yards.
Okay. Okay.
So this is where I screwed up. This is obviously before I was on SWAT. I didn't have any extensive tactics training at this time. Is when they teach you as a basic police officer, they teach you to everybody to converge on the threat, no matter what the threat is. Obviously, I later realized this was a mistake, after, especially when I got on SWAT.
Mm-hmm.
But so I see the other three guys come around the house and confront them. So I leave my position with a rifle that I have and I approach the guy. He sees me come out of the woods. I jump a little riverbank. He starts looking back at me as the biggest threat, I think, because I have the rifle. And he starts going off. He's got his hands in his pocket. This is September, pretty warm in Ohio. Had a baggy shirt. We didn't see any guns on the guy, though. He's got his hands in his pocket. Didn't see a bulge or anything. So the other deputies start yelling him, hey, we're here to help you, man. He's like, you're the fucking government. Get the fuck off my property. Like, dude, we're just here to talk to you. You're not in any trouble, you know?
Yeah.
Fuck you, fuck you. And let me tell you what, in a split second, all hell broke loose. This guy pulls out a 5-shot revolver Derringer. There's a 22 Magnum, so it was tiny. It fit in his hands. He shoots at the one deputy, and the round goes above his head. At the same time, he went to tase the guy, so it happened simultaneously. Turns around, I'm probably 8 feet from him at this time. I'm starting to come up. 22 Magnum round comes, strikes me in the neck, enters my neck, quarter-inch from my jugular vein, exits a quarter-inch from my spine. I didn't know this at the time. Since it was so close to my spine, I thought I was being electrocuted because it was so close to my central
Yep.
nervous system there.
Yep.
I froze up. I dropped my rifle. Uh, I froze up for about 2 seconds. Didn't hear any gunfire. It's I don't know if it's the same when you talk to SEALs that have been in gunfights, but for police, a lot of weird shit starts happening. Time slows down. I didn't hear any gunfire. I come to. It's 3 seconds later. 23 rounds were fired by everybody. Old homeboy's laying in the ditch. He got shot 3 times. I'm
Three,
bleeding
three,
out.
three times and 22 bullets. Did you shoot?
23.
Did you shoot any
No,
bullets? Yep.
no, in that one. The one deputy fired 11 rounds. The other one fired 5 rounds. And the other deputy that was there was a SWAT operator. He shot 3 rounds. And I'm pretty sure at least two of his rounds hit this dude. So he's laying in the ditch. I'm bleeding everywhere. I'm just, at this point, I'm like, this is the end. This is how it ends, man. I'm just waiting for everything to go black. Because I was sure the amount of blood that was coming out of me, I thought I was bleeding out.
Yep.
I another sergeant gets there. They tell me to come up to the house. Uh, they cuff the bad guy. They stabilize me. The ambulance finally gets there a couple minutes later, and at that time I realized maybe I'm in pretty good shape because I didn't pass out yet. And I ended up getting life flighted. They life flighted the bad guy. He was in pretty critical condition. All three of the rounds that hit him were in the lower back area. Uh, we both got life flighted, and I spent that
Did
night
you
in
ride
the
on the same
hospital.
helicopter or a different
No,
helicopter?
they
Different helicopter.
landed two separate choppers,
Yeah.
and the deputy had a ride with the bad guy as he got life flighted. He ended up living, got 28 years in prison. He's still in prison. Like he's got another 8 or 9 years to do.
Yeah.
But he was 30
Over did
years
he
old.
did he end up going to Marion?
They move you around in Ohio. I think that's where he was there, but they move people around a lot in Ohio when you get
Got you.
sentenced, so they don't keep you in the same place.
We had a football practice in Marion. That's why I asked. When I was at
Okay.
Findlay, Ohio, we practiced at Marion one day. It was pretty awesome.
So ended up getting through that, the trial. Had a real hard time though at the time, and this is where I'll get back to everything I went through with SEAL training and buds. But I the next five cops that got shot after me in Northeast Ohio all got killed. So I started having the survivor syndrome of wondering, well, why did I survive? And all these other police officers gotten killed. The day I got shot was the day of a Cleveland cop that got shot the week before me, and he died. He got killed by a quarter inch because it went in the side of his bulletproof vest when he was serving a warrant and it hit his heart. I wonder, well, why did he die? I got saved by a quarter inch because it went in a quarter inch from my jugular vein, quarter inch by my spine. So, started hitting the bottle again. And I took 6 weeks off of work and had to really find my soul and reflect back to everything I've been through. And I'm like, you know what? Like, this really isn't so bad. I started thinking back to buds. It's funny, just once you have that seed in your brain of going through that,
Yeah.
it's like, it wasn't that bad. I'm like, oh, basically, this dude just used a tool to try to hurt me, is the way I looked at it. I'm like, no different than him trying to hit me with a bat. He just chose to use a gun, and I survived. It didn't kill me, make me stronger.
You know, it's interesting because when I got shot 3 weeks before I went to Naval Academy. I was like,
Jeez.
okay, we got lucky. Not going out of the house. We're not going to leave the house. I got to the Naval Academy. Wasn't a big deal. I ran the next day after I got shot. I got shot in the
Right.
left hip and it went all the way around. It's in my hip socket. And I ran the next day, never, no pain, never hurt, right? And then I got to Naval Academy. I forgot about it. And then the first football game, I broke my hip. And they took an x-ray. And I was like, oh, I'm going to get kicked out. And the doctor's like, I got shot. And they're like, oh, okay, no big deal. And then like it never was a big deal. I never was like, oh my God, why me? I know this. The one thing I did say though, because the 3 or 4 bullets that the guy shot went through a crowd of all of my friends. All of my friends.
Jeez.
I got shot 70 yards away from the actual drive-by, right? And I was just like, man, thank God. Like two of my friends tell me like the bullets were going by and they were like, oh my God. And my one homeboy was just like, I couldn't move. And he was like, zip, zip, zip. And I was like, ah. So like some
Wow.
parts of me, I'm like, man, we got out of there. Like my whole crew, the same dudes from first grade that I still have today, we managed to dodge a bullet that day, right? Unfortunately, I
Right.
wasn't fast enough to dodge the bullet that hit me, but I really not too big of repercussions. And it really changed me fundamentally because I wasn't invincible anymore, right? Like,
Right.
and so
Right.
like when I got to the SEAL teams and I got to my ship, like when guns were involved and like when I got to SEAL teams, motherfuckers were like, yo, what's your price? I said, listen, man, I've been shot before. Okay.
Right.
I ran out of bullets in a gunfight one time. It was the worst feeling in the world. Like I got nightmares today from it, right? So, that
Yeah.
survivor guilt, understand it, man. A lot of dudes out there
Yeah.
that have it.
So yeah, what was ironic with this, and even when I'll go into, so I got on SWAT about a year after that. I took the test and I finally got on SWAT, which was really cool to me. I'm like, now I get to really do some cool shit, learn all the CQB, clearing houses, all that stuff. Uh, During this whole time, it's funny though, because I swear on a Bible, I never, till this day, had a dream about either of my shootings I was all involved in, but I still, to this day, have dreams about buds.
Oh yeah.
How crazy
Yep.
is that? I have
Yep.
these crazy ass dreams and I'm 52 years old and I'm gonna try to make a run at it again. It's like,
Yep.
so I don't know. That obviously did something to my brain more than either of my shootings I was involved in. Uh, End up doing SWAT for the next I was I was a regular SWAT operator for 4 years, and then I decided to become a sniper on the SWAT team. So I did that for the last 10 years of my 14 years on SWAT.
So
2019,
14 years on SWAT, you didn't have to shoot nobody?
no, you believe that? I
Mm.
tell people now we've had a ton of call outs where it's pretty close. A lot of people think, would say, patrol is dangerous, SWAT is deadly. I tell these guys, it's the other way around. I said, patrol is deadly, SWAT is dangerous. The reason being, when we go to these calls, a domestic, me and another guy, you have no idea what you're walking into.
Yeah.
There could be a guy in the second floor with a rifle pointed at you, and you have no idea. And you have that, as you're aware, action versus reaction. You have to react to whatever they decide to do. They're going to have the drop on you every time.
Yep.
At least
Yep.
at a SWAT call out, we're showing up with 20 guys with body armor, helmets, fully automatic weapons, snipers, uh, and we know what we're walking into.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, you gas people, you get them out of the house. So, 90% of the time, you start breaking their windows, gassing the house, they're going to come out. But
Gotcha.
uh,
Gotcha.
fast forward 2019, get another call. Uh, Guy shows up at one of the three cities in the jurisdiction of the county, uh, in the police department parking lot, calls 911,
Mm.
says he has a gun. Now
Mm.
there's houses around here too. He says, I have a gun in your parking lot and a lot of people are going to die tonight. So that city police department asked for our assistance. We get down there. Uh, I have my AR with me this time, and I come up to another officer from that local police department. We found a very good spot with cover. There was a brick wall to the local courthouse there, and we were able to stand behind that. It was perfect cover, about 30 yards away from the guy. And we have red dots on our rifle, so as you know, that's nothing at 30 yards. They tried negotiating with this guy for about 30 minutes. Finally, he said, nope, it's time to do this. Pulls out the gun and points it at us. And fortunately, he's no longer with us.
Yep.
That gunfight, 12 rounds were fired, 6 rounds hit him. The difference with that shooting is I already had all these years on SWAT, so I was ready for it. I heard all the gunfire with this one. It didn't hurt my ears for whatever reason, but I heard all the gunfire. I remember from all the training we have, you keep your gun on safety till you're ready to engage the target. You watch our body cams with that. All of a sudden, you hear me and the guy next to me, you hear a click, click, and then the gunfire because you don't even realize with the motor memory of training till I saw the body cam that we hit our safeties before we engaged this guy.
Yep. Yep.
So,
And then it turns out that he had a BB gun.
yeah, so the next day, some of the guys call me and they're like, hey, the guy you guys shot had a BB gun. And we're
It's all
like,
right. Hey, listen, man. This. Here's what I'm gonna tell you. Okay, die by cop, do dumb shit, get dumb prizes. Right.
right?
So
Yeah,
I was doing some first responder kind of counseling out in Houston with my rabbi, and there
right.
was a guy that shot his best friend, killed a police officer, killed his best friend, and it was the craziest thing in the world. He pulled over some random truck with no driver, with no license plate on it. Dude jumps out of the car blazing with a gun. He shoots him. He gets shot, kills the guy, and then by the time he gets over there to look at it, I think he got shot 3 times. It's his best friend.
Jesus.
And I mean best friend from first grade. Like it's his best friend. And I
Right.
said, hey man, listen. So at the end of the day, somebody got to go home. It was not your best friend. He made a
Yep.
choice to come out firing. I bet you if you had told him that you were in that car, he probably wouldn't have done that, but he did. You're getting to go
Yep.
home to your kids. And he was crushed, man. He ended up taking a sabbatical, and then he ended up just leaving the police department over that one, which I understand, right? Like,
Absolutely.
I understand, but like, I can't live in guilt for it. Like, I can't live the rest of my life in guilt for it. He made a decision. He had a fucking clean ass BB gun. We're gonna put it in the video. We're gonna show everybody what the BB
Yeah.
gun looks like. You're getting shot. You're getting shot. Maybe if Dev Group or Delta is there with you, you don't get shot. Maybe one
Right.
of them dudes is like, yo, that's a BB gun. But
Right.
9 times out of 10, no, no, no. 199 times out of 1,000, you're getting killed if you have that gun in your hand.
Yeah. Yep. And just since this video is about young kids that want to be SEALs, I mean, let me tell you what that training I went through, even though I didn't make it all the way through, that's what kept me mentally. My dad always said it to me. He's like, Jim, that's a lot of people told me maybe you should get a disability. You can get a mental disability. You've been in, but I don't need one. And it all goes back to that training I had with SEAL teammate and buds, and most memorably Hell Week. And nothing in my life has ever been near as hard as that was. And so that's something I was able to carry with me, even though I never became a Navy SEAL. I was able to carry that with me my life up to this point and for the rest of my life. And they can never take that away from me. So
All right,
uh,
Jim, what are you doing currently?
finishing up my last year, I resigned from the SWAT team a couple years ago because I'm 52 years old.
Yep.
Uh, so that's a young man's game. I'm finishing up here at the Sheriff's Department. I have another year and a couple months. I'm going to retire. I've been married, happily married, for the last 10 years. I have a beautiful wife, stepdaughter. She's now 19 years old. When I met her mama, she was 4 or 5 years old, so she's my daughter.
Okay.
She found Dad's footsteps here and just got hired at the Sheriff's Department as a correction officer.
Okay.
So, I'm going to finish up my last year and we'll see what life has to bring me then.
Awesome, man. Awesome. All right. So, real quick, Jim, I know we covered a lot. We've talked about, Navy SEAL training, all of this stuff. Give me 3 tips, like your top tips for someone going to SEAL training or Green Beret, AFAS, Q course, PJ. Give me your top 3 tips for somebody trying to go down that road. And I'm going to add this, just somebody trying to go do something really, really hard. What are
Okay.
your top 3 tips?
So I've watched a lot of your videos. The first tip is the kids that are taking Jake's program. If he tells you you're not ready for SEAL training, you're fucking not ready for SEAL training, okay? You have the internet, you have all these tools available to you that I never had. Use that to your advantage. Do not go to the Navy till you're ready. Remember that if you do not make it through SEAL training, you're going to be on a ship chipping paint. Uh, I'm sick and tired of seeing a lot of these videos where all these kids keep saying, I'll never quit, I'll never quit. Yet everybody that goes to SEAL training has that mentality, but yet 80% of the people are going to quit.
Yep.
This is no joke. You better have your ass ready and you better have your shit together when you go. This next thing I'm going to say is you better not have a girlfriend or wife when you go to SEAL training. You know who your girlfriends should be? It should be buds. And you goddamn well better not cheat on buds or she's going to leave you.